Hello everyone and welcome to the video from Math 8 Lesson 6. In this lesson we'll be going over Chapter 6 Section 1 which starts on page 218. Now this section deals with what we are going to call the percent equation. So coming in here I am assuming that you've at least heard of percentages and kind of know how they work, okay? But everything you need to know about percentages we will talk about in this video, and then also talk about the percent equation so that way you have a nice equation or a formula to use whenever you need to answer a question about a percentage. Okay. Now when we talk about a percent, you might know the symbol that we use for the percent, which is the basically two circles cut down the middle by a slash. So basically a circle on either side of a slash. Okay. And when you see that, you understand that you're dealing with a percentage. Okay. And once again, something you should know coming in here, but a percentage is basically telling you how much of a whole that you have. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's say you ate 50% of your candy bar, okay? Well, that means you ate half of your candy bar. You have 50% left. You ate 50%, okay? If you ate 25% of your candy bar, that means you ate 1/4 or 1/4 of your candy bar. That means you have 3/4 or 3/4 of your candy bar left, or 75% of your candy bar left, okay? So we can use percentages to talk about things, different things in kind of the same way. That means we can say, okay, well, I have 50% of my eraser left on my pencil. Okay. That means you have half the eraser left. Or same thing with the candy bar. You have 50% of your candy bar. Well, that means you have half of your candy bar. So once again, we're talking about different things there: pencil erasers and candy bars. But the 50% still means the same thing. You have 50% left, or 50% has been taken away, okay? Now, the big thing we're going to have to know how to do is when we're dealing with percentages, we're going to have to be able to write percentages as fractions and, more importantly, decimals. Okay, so I'm going to rely on you a little bit rely on you coming in with that a little bit of that information when we go forward here, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about with the percent equation is that the percent equation can be used to answer questions involving percentages. Okay. And in words, the percent equation tells us, okay, and I'm going to use variables here. So this is for basically any numbers A, P, and W, okay? But what the percent equation tells us is A is P percent of W. Now, what that means is if we have a number A, then it is P percent of W. Okay, so to write that out as an actual equation that we're going to use, and this is the same equation we're going to use for every single one of these questions, is we have A is equal to, so that's where the is comes from, so is equal to P, and then when we want a percent of W, we multiply, so P times W. Okay, now if we have this, each one of these variables represents something different, okay? So the P and the W, you could probably guess what those are going to stand for if you know anything about percentages, but the A is a little bit messed up because we don't really have anything that we call A here, okay, that starts with an A. So what we actually call this A is the part of the whole. So basically, when we were talking about the candy bar, the part of the whole, if you ate 25% of your candy bar, it's the 1/4 of the candy bar that you ate. Okay. It's the part of the whole candy bar that you ate. Okay. It's equal to, well, the P, that's actually going to stand for percent. Okay. So the percentage that you have, okay, P percent. So that's the percent. And then W is going to represent the whole. So in this case of our candy bar example, the whole candy bar. So the piece that you ate is 25% of the whole candy bar. Okay. So that's one way you can think about all these parts of whole, percent, and whole. Okay. Now the reason we call this A, if you look real closely, we already have something called P, the percent. But then if we have P, if we go to the next letter, that's A. I'm pretty sure that's where they get the letter A here for part of the whole. Okay. But once again, if we use this equation, we can go through and figure out what percentage, different questions when we're dealing with percentages. Okay. A little concrete example here. Okay. Little concrete example. So let me carve out a little box here. When I say 15 is 50% of 30, most everybody would agree with me because 15 is half of 30, okay? 50% means half. So if 15 is 50% of 30, we can write that as an equation as 15 is the part is equal to 50%. But here's where we got to be careful, okay? And this is the biggest thing that we'll talk about in this section. If we're plugging in 50% or any percent for that matter in an equation and we're going to multiply, okay, we have to write the percentage as a decimal, okay? So I'm going to put that over here in just a second just so everybody's clear about that. But when we put the percentage into an equation and we multiply by something, we have to write that percentage as a decimal. So we have 50% written as 0.50, okay? And once again, I'm kind of relying on you knowing that to make this percentage into a decimal, you got to move the decimal place 2 places over. So in this case, the decimal place is here beside the 0. We move it in front of the 5. So that's 0.5 or 0.5 or 0.50, okay? And as we go through the examples, you'll get the hang of writing your percentages as decimals, okay? Because it actually works the same every single time. But in this case, 15 is 50% of, and then 30, which is a true statement. If we take 0.5 or 0.5 and multiply it times 30, that is 15, okay? So once again, the biggest thing here is to make sure to write your percentages as decimals when multiplying. Okay. So big thing here, probably the biggest thing in this section that we'll talk about, okay? Because every time that we deal with percentages going forward, whether we're talking about discounts, taxes, interest rates, okay? Anytime you plug it into an equation or into a formula and you're going to multiply or divide or anything like that with a percentage, you have to change it to a decimal, okay? So like I said, this part right here, super important. Okay, let me do that a little better. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the first example. So first example, this is an example of a question where we need to find part of a number, okay? So in this case, we want to know what number is 24% of 50. So first thing we need to do, let's write down our equation. A is equal to P times W. So now we need to talk about what numbers from up here do we plug in our equation, okay? So in this case, I'm going to give you a little hint here, okay? What number is 24% of 50? Well, the percentage, whatever the percentage is, that's always going to be plugged in for P, okay? So P is always the percentage. Now, in this case, we have what number is, okay? And I'll elaborate this on the next slide here. What number is, well, in this case, whatever number that is not the percentage that is directly next to the word is, in this case, what number? Well, we don't know the number. Well, that's actually going to be the part of our whole, okay? And then 24% of whatever the percentage is taken of. So if you see the word of, what follows the word of is always going to be the whole, okay? So one way to think about it is the part, of is the whole, and then the percentage is just the percentage. So when we plug into our expression here, or to our equation, well, we don't know what A is, so it's going to stay A, but we know the percentage is 24%. But once again, since we're plugging it into an equation or into a formula, we have to write the percentage as a decimal, so 0.24, okay? And then times, well, we know the whole is 50. So in this case, A is going to be 0.24 times 50. Now, that's not anything that I suspect many people could do in their head, but if you're clever enough, you can do this in your head. But if you need to, double check yourself on a calculator. 0.24 times 50 is the number 12. Okay, so what this means is 12 is 24% of the number 50. Okay, so 12 is the number. All right, so a real world example where this could be relevant, let's say there's 50 cars in the parking lot, and you know 24% of those cars are red. Well, in this case, the answer to how many cars are red, if 24% of 50 is red, well, then that's 12 cars, okay? So once again, this formula allows us to say, well, what number is 24 of 50? Well, 12 is 24% of 50, okay? Forgot the word percent there. 24% of 50, okay? So what you need to be aware of here is the word is goes with the part of the whole, whereas the word of goes with the whole. Okay, so I'll elaborate on this a little later at the very last slide, because you do have to be careful. But once again, if you can associate the word is with the part of the whole and the word of with the whole, then every single time when you're plugging into this equation, if you've got the word of, that's what is after of will go with the whole, and what is after or before is will go with the A. And then once again, the P is always a percentage. So really, if you see the percentage in one of these questions, that's always going to be automatically P. The only thing you have to worry about is the A and the W. What are you going to plug in for those? Okay. So let's go ahead and go on to the next example. Example 2. In this case, this is the type of question where we need to find a percentage. So the question we're asked here is 9.5 is what percent of 25? So the same kind of thing. Let's write out our equation. A is equal to P times W. Well, once again, 9.5 is. So in this case, 9.5 is going to be our part. What percent? Well, that's just it. We don't know what percentage it is. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, so that means we're looking for P of 25. So percent of 25, that means 25 is going to be the whole. So when we plug it in, we've got 9.5 is equal to P. Whoa, it's not a P. P times 25. Now, when we get to this point, I'm also relying on something else that you've probably done before, which is solving one-step equations, which we'll elaborate on later because we got a whole section we're devoting, or a whole good portion of the class that we're devoting to just solving equations and inequalities, okay? But if we have a one-step equation like this, once again, the variable we have here is P. That's what we're looking for. Well, what are we doing to P? We're multiplying it times 25. So if we want to figure out what P is, we need to get rid of this 25. So the opposite of multiplying times 25 is dividing by 25. But here's one thing we got to remember. If we divide by 25 on one side, since this is an equation, we have to divide the other side by 25. And the whole point in dividing by 25 is so that our 25 factors will cancel out, leaving us with the number 1, and P times 1 is P. Okay? But then we have to actually calculate what this other side is. And once again, this is not something I imagine a lot of people would be able to do in their head. So if you plug into your calculator 9.5 divided by 25, you actually get that number is 0.38. But we're not quite done just yet. We have 0.38 is P. Well, once again, we're talking about a percentage up here. So what this is actually saying is 9.5 is 38%. Okay. So in this case, 0.38 is 38%. So 38% of 25. Okay. So in this case, you know what the part is, okay? And you know what the whole is, okay? So in this case, an example you could use on this one is, well, if you know you're getting a $9.50 discount or a $9.5 discount on a purchase of $25, well, what is the percentage discount you're getting? Well, in this case, that would be a 38% discount, okay? And we'll actually see questions like that when we do talk about taxes and discounts and such, where we have to figure out what the discount is or figure out what the tax is, okay? And this type of question can be answered by solving your percent equation for P, okay? So in this case, 9.5 is what percent of 25? Well, it's 38% of 25. Because once again, we plug in for A, we plug in for W, solve for P. Okay. Now let's go to next example. In this case, example 1, we found the part of the number. Example 2, we found the percentage of a number. And in example 3, well, we're going to find the whole of a number. So what is the whole? Okay. So in this type of question, you'll see we have 39 is 52% of what number? Okay. Well, once again, first step should be always write out your equation. A is equal to P times W. So we have 39 is, that means 39 will be the A. 52%, well, since that's a percentage, that automatically has to be the P. And then of what number? Well, that tells us what we're looking for. We're looking for what number is 39 52% of. Okay. So once again, what number here tells us we're looking for W. So when we plug in, we get 39 is equal to 0.52. So once again, we can't forget, we have to write our percentage as a decimal times W. And this one works very similarly to what we just did in example 2, okay? We want to solve for W. Well, what are we doing to W? We're multiplying it times 0.52. So the opposite of multiplying times 0.52 is dividing by 0.52. And once again, the whole purpose here is so that those factors will cancel out, leaving us with 1 W. Okay, so 1 times W, which is W. But if we divide by 0.52 on this side, or 0.52, we have to do it to the other side where this is an equation. Okay, so in this case, 39 divided by 0.52. Once again, I don't expect everybody to be able to do that in your head, but if you use your calculator and calculate this out, you see that the number is 75. Okay. So once again, what this means is 39 is 52% of the number 75. Okay, so 75 is what we solve for here. Solve for the whole. So this type of question is saying, okay, well, let's say you're going to save $39 on a purchase, okay? And you know that the sale is 52% off. Well, the whole that we found here is that, all right, the original cost of the item that you bought was $75, okay? So if you know you're getting $39 off and you know the sale is 52% off, the original price of the item was $75, okay? So it's telling you the whole price, whereas 39 is the part of the price that you're getting off, okay? So once again, finding the whole of a number is important, okay? Not as important as finding the percentage or finding the part of a number, as you'll see later on when we look at in sections further on down the road, okay? But we can still use, so if we know the part and we know the percentage, we can find what whole, okay? What was the original number that we started with, okay? The original whole number. So let's go ahead and look at, so that's actually it for the examples we're going to look at in the book. But I do have 3 extra examples that I want to go over with you that actually aren't in the book. So they're only here in the video, or if you had me in class, we went over these in class as well, okay? So in this case, example 1, extra example 1, 36.4 is what percent of 40? So once again, we write down. So we see this is a percentage question. Let's write down our percent equation. 36.4 is. So that tells us 36.4 is our part. What percent, okay, tells us that we're going to be solving this equation or solving for P of 40. So what percent of 40? So that's going to be our whole. So we just plug in 36.4 is equal to P, which we don't know, times 40. And the same thing here. We want to solve for P. Well, what are we doing to P? We're multiplying times 40. So the opposite of multiplying times 40 is dividing by 40. But if we divide one side by 40, we have to divide the other side by 40. So the 40s here cancel out, leaving us with P times 1, which is simply just P. And then once again, another one that you probably can't do in your head. So if you need to plug into your calculator, 36.4 divided by 40, we get this as 0.91. So in this case, 0.91 is actually 91%. So 36.4 is 91% of the number 40. Okay. Okay. So let's go on to the next example. Extra example 2. 18 is 15% of what number? Okay, so in this case, as always, start off with your equation. Once again, we know the 15% has to go in for P because it's the percentage. 18 is, so that tells us 18 is the part of what number? Well, of what number, that means we're looking for the whole, okay? So in this case, we have 18 is equal to 0.15 times W. So W, we don't know what the whole is, okay? So same kind of thing here. We're looking for W. We're multiplying W times 0.15. That means we need to divide by 0.15. If we do it to one side, we've got to do it to the other. The whole point is to get rid of those 0.15s to give us 1W, so 1 times W, which is W. And then once again, if you need to, plug this into your calculator. 18 divided by 0.15, that number is actually 120. Okay, so the answer here is 18 is 15% of 120. Okay, once again, if you had a discount of $18 and you knew that it was 15% off, well, then that means the original price of your item is $120. Okay, so once again, you can kind of work backwards to figure out what the original price was or how much there originally was of something, what the whole amount was. Okay. And the last example that we'll go over here is what number is 73% of 200? Well, once again, if we have our equation, okay, what number is? Well, the what number, okay, that tells us we're looking for the part. So what number is, okay, that's the part. 73% automatically has to be P in this case, the percentage. And of 200, so of tells us what the whole is, and it's 200. So when we plug in, we don't know what A is. We know 73 is the percentage, so 0.73 times the whole, which is 200. So this is the easiest type of question to solve. All we got to do is do 0.73 times 200. Once again, not expecting everybody to do that in your head, but if you multiply that out, you get the number 146. Okay, so the answer to this question is 146. So 146 is 73% of 200. Once again, this type of question could be, okay, there's 200 people at a concert, and we know 73% of them have on blue shirts. Well, how many people had on blue shirts at the concert? Well, that would be 146 people had blue shirts on. Okay, so once again, finding the part of the whole is also important in some real world applications, as we'll see later on. Okay, now the last thing that I want to say, okay, is we do have to be careful. So let's look at these two last, well, I said the last one was the last example. Let's look at these two last examples. 25% of 120 is what number? So notice we've kind of moved things around, and English language is weird like that, where you can move things around and you're asking the same question, okay, as what it would be if the words were flipped around, okay? So in this case, 25% of 120 is what number? Well, once again, we start off with our equation, but here we have to be careful. Once again, 25%, since that's the percentage, that's going to be P, okay, of 120. Well, once again, the percent of the whole, okay, whatever's after of has to be the whole. Even though the word is here, and 120 is, okay, we have to really look it up here. 25% of 120, that means the percentage of the whole is what number. So this what number, that's actually going to be our A. So if we're plugging in this case, we want to know what A is. We know P is 0.25. times the whole is 120. So in this case, 25% of 130, or 0.25 times 120, or 120, excuse me, is 30. So 30 is 25% of 120. And once again, because they inverted this here, we really have to pay attention. 25%, well, that's going to be the percentage of 120. That's the whole. So we're looking for what the part is. So the part of 120 that is 25% is 30. Okay. So just be careful when you're looking at the words, okay? And there'll be some questions on the practice and the homework that are like this where the words shift around a little bit. Just make sure you are paying attention. The percentage always has to be P. The percentage is always of the whole, okay? So of 120, that's the whole. And then what number is what number? Well, that's going to be A. We see the same thing happen when we look at this one. What percent of 300 is 15? Once again, if we have our equation, what percent? Well, once again, that's telling us we're going to be looking for P. Of 300 tells us 300 is the whole, and then is 15, well, that's telling us 15 is the part. So once again, we know it's going to be 15 is the part is equal to what percent? So P times 300. Okay. And same as the other questions, once we get to this point, we're multiplying P times 300, so that means we need to divide by 300. And if we divide both sides by 300, we get the 300s cancel out, so this is P. So P times 1, which is P. 15 divided by 300 is 0.05. And once again, knowing how to make that decimal into a percentage, this is 5%. Okay. So once again, be careful when you're looking at a sentence and it's dealing with percentages. The word of always relates to the whole. The percent symbol or the word percent always refers to P, so the percentage. And then the word is always found around whatever the part of the whole is. In this case, is what number, but if you go back, it could be before the word is, okay? So just be careful. Make sure you practice this when you're looking at the practice. Also, you can go on IXL. I plan to have the some percentage sections suggested to you. So whenever you feel like you need to practice, you can go on IXL at any point and practice this kind of stuff, okay? But other than that, just be on the lookout for the practice and the homework assignments. And once again, take your time. Make sure you understand. Make sure you read the instructions, okay? But other than that, good luck on your practice and homework, and thank you for watching.